And honor some of our local veterans and talk about some of the work that's being done in our Veteran Legacy class. We have some great speakers today, some honored guests. And so with that said, one of the main reasons that I think it's important that we do this is, as you all know, over the last few months, there's been some things going on in our country with people with regard to their rights. First Amendment, Second Amendment, regardless of what it is. Our rights, our civil rights as Americans, we have the right to disagree, and we have the right to disagree without being disagreeable. At the end of the day, every veteran in this country has fought to give us those rights. And so this is an opportunity to say thank you to them. I'm proud of my service. But those you do not know, I served in the Army right out of high school for a couple of years. And I also served in the National Guard, so I'm proud of my service, and I'm very proud of everybody we have here with us today. So with that said, enough about me. Let's talk about our veterans. I would like to introduce Staff Sergeant Fraser Raymond. Sergeant Raymond. Sergeant Raymond is 22 years in the military. He's a Vietnam vet. He's a current president of the Moses Williams chapter of the 9th and 10th Cavalry Association. He's a member of the board of directors for the Community Military Appreciation Committee and an all-around great guy. We're welcome to honor and to welcome Staff Sergeant Fraser Raymond to Yamhill-Carlton High School.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Principal. Thank you for allowing me to stand before you. As you said, I did 22 years in the military, in and out of Vietnam by the time I was 20. We got it now. Anyway, I wound up doing 22 years. I came out at the age of 40. And I figured I'd retire and just go away and go fishing. That never happened. Today, like I said, I'm a member of a few different organizations. I'm not here to talk about myself, though. I'm going to talk about the Buffalo Soldiers. Now, many of you probably heard of Bob Marley's song, Buffalo Soldier. Well, the story of the Buffalo Soldier goes a lot further than that. They were activated at the end of the Civil War, and they formed 6 units. 2 cavalry, 4 infantry. They served on the frontier in various capacities. They fought the Indian Wars. They guarded stagecoaches, guided wagon trains. They also were the forerunners of our National Park Service. Now, if you guys ride bicycles, imagine riding a bicycle, wood-rimmed bicycles up to one of these mountains. This is what the Buffalo Soldiers did to accomplish their mission. They served in Yosemite and Sequoia. 3 black gentlemen that graduated from West Point in the early 1800s. Lieutenant Charles Flipper, Captain Alvin Allensworth, and one other individual named eludes me at the moment. However, they served. Buffalo Soldiers, when they first were formed, they were led by white officers because our Congress decided the African American soldier probably couldn't lead himself, which later proved to be a fallacy. They served not only in the Indian Wars, they served in the Philippines, they served in World War I. Now, while they were serving in World War I, they had to fight under a French flag because our military forces were segregated. But they did their duty. Those that served under the French flag, they were awarded 19 medals across the gallantry called the Croix de Guerre. The Buffalo Soldiers themselves, they received 19 Medal of Honors for their service. The chapter that I'm the president of today, Moses Williams chapter, Moses Williams was a recipient of the Medal of Honor. Now, his story is interesting in that once he was assigned up to Oregon City, he came up to Oregon City with wagon training, and he applied for a position as an ordnance NCO. An ordnance NCO is assigned to the installation, not a unit. So they didn't know what to do with it once they awarded them this position. Well, Fort Stevens was being, the cadre for Fort Stevens was being removed from there and sent over to Fort Campbell. So the Army decided to send Moses Williams to Fort Stevens. And there he served for 2 years by himself. Once Fort Campbell was repaired, they had to re-garrison Fort Stevens. History tells us that the old soldier, after 37 years of military service, he decided it was time to retire and go home. In actuality, because our military was still segregated, and he could not be on the same installation as white troops, or he couldn't command white troops. So he returned to Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, where a year and a half later he passed away. Now, the interesting thing about Moses Williams is that when he joined the military, he could not read or write. But by the time he served, he signed his second enlistment, he was signing his name. By the time he retired, he was reading books. These are the character of the men that served in the Buffalo Soldiers. And as I said before, the Buffalo Soldiers served from the beginning of the Civil War up until World War II. Now, there's a question about whether or not the Buffalo Soldiers were disbanded, decommissioned, inactivated, or whatever. But history tells us, it says they were dismounted. The 9th Infantry is still in existence. The 10th Cavalry is no longer the 10th Horse Cavalry, it's now the 10th Air Cavalry. So the tradition of the Buffalo Soldier still lives on active duty. I'm not going to take up all your time. The thing of it is that each one of you out there that can sit in this audience building, each one of you has the ability to contribute. And all you need to do is look within yourself and you'll find what we call in the military that intestinal fortitude. It's there in you. I'll give you a small example. This is the second time I've been here. I got lost the first time. This morning I was almost in Astoria. But I turned around and I was like, okay, I'm going out there, and I don't know where I'm going, or, I couldn't even remember the name of the school. And my wife, she gave me the GPS, or did that GPS thing. Well, that just sit on the side. But anyway, I got here. I was supposed to be accompanied by 2 other troopers, but for various reasons they couldn't make it. So I decided if I'm going to make it, I'm going to stand, because this is the essence of being not only a Buffalo Soldier, but being a part of this human community. Sometimes you have to stand alone, but that's okay. As long as you stay. And with that, I'm going to get out of your way.
Thank you very much, Sergeant. So at this point, I'd like to invite Tyler Stiff up to say a few words about a recent trip. Tyler.
Before I start, I'd just like to say this is really weird being on this side of the mic. So, person I want to talk to you about, his name, does anyone know the band Kiss?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. You know the lead guitarist, Tommy Thayer?
No.
Okay. Space Ace? This is his father. I'm going to go through a couple of accomplishments of what he did, and then I'll show you this little story. He actually grew up and graduated from Carlton High School in 1940. So that was before the 2 schools were together. He was the editor of the school newspaper, and he was also a noted varsity athlete. He earned a scholarship for journalism to U of O, and before he graduated, he went and served in World War II as the mine platoon commander. There, he served over in Europe, where he liberated Gunskirchen concentration camp, saving 15,000 Hungarian Jews. The way he described it was more like a death camp. They just sent people there pretty much just to die. He was present during the Nuremberg trials where the Nazis were held accountable for their actions. And he is the namesake of the Oregon Military Museum. They're actually, I think they're still building it. It's a military museum for Oregon veterans, as far as I'm saying that right. And it's actually called the James B. Thayer Museum. After his service, he founded the J. Thayer Company and became a civilian aide for the Secretary of the Army. And as I said earlier, today he is the General of the Kiss Army. So without taking much more time, I'll turn it over to the video.
The first question is, what were some of your favorite memories of the Carlton High School?
I think the principal of our high school was a guy named Elmer F. Goodwin. And every morning, in those days they had classes called civics. And I'm going to go into a little more detail. Our high school, we had 100 students, 25 in each class. There was 300 in the school, 8th grades, all in one building plus a little annex. But what meant more to me than anything else, I'm going to diverge from the question to begin with. Every morning he would give us a real talk on Americanism, what it meant to be an American, how do you become American, and we would get just so thoughtful. You know, we sat there and I don't know whether it's important or not, but that meant more to us to become an outstanding high school in America. But I want you to know the principal was the key guy, and he was kind of a robust guy, and he just loved to talk, but what he said, the principal was the guy that made it work. Now back to the question.
Is there a rivalry between Carlton, Yamhill, or anybody else?
Maybe Amity. Amity had the best football teams, had some very good-looking girls there. I'd meet them skating at the Armory in McMinnville. Jane Jensen, see, what are the other girls' names? You know, but Amity was a big one. Carlton Yamhill was a rivalry, but just so friendly, you know.
Are there any life lessons you learned specifically from Carlton that just helped you become a better person and prepare you?
I'm going to start out a little bit differently, because I think we're addressing half the students are from Carlton, and I bet some of them don't realize that Carlton is 1 square mile. I bet not any of those students knew that Carlton's 1 square mile. It was formed by a guy named Winneberg. And down by the Yamhill River, there's a Winneberg Park where they have the wine deal every year down along the river. And across the bridge, about a mile and a half, there's a big hill called Reservoir Hill, and he built a reservoir for water for Carlton. So that, I just say that is the beginning of Carlton. And when I was there, Carlton, as I say, was 1 square mile. There was an east-west going to the mountains into Lafayette and Amity, to Newburgh, and then there was Yamhill was 3 miles north. Carlton was 7 miles south of McMinnville. That's the location. It was right at a junction. And in Carlton, there were 3 grocery stores, Jarrett's, Anderson's, and Dundies. 3 stores, 3 grocery stores. There was a hair cutter there, a livery stable. Now, most of the young people won't know what a livery stable is, but it's a parking lot. They would bring the horses in, say Panther Creek and so on, and park them. They'd pay a farm. And while they were there was a blacksmith shop that saw the horses' feet. There was a harness factory of a guy that made harness for the horses. And that's really when I first was a little boy. And everything was pretty much horses. There was a doctor. There was and the other thing that's kind of interesting, and I think this is pretty honest, But Carlton is really famous because the guy that got Carlton going invented the baseball mask. This is pretty important. And he was quite wealthy. And we had a bank, Carlton State Bank. He had a big building that he built that basically was a hall upstairs where the Oddfellows and Rebecca's would meet. And in the lower level, which later became a beer joint later on. But he was a guy that really got it going.
So, sir, what we have here is I don't know if you recognize that guy.
Now that looks exactly like me when I went to Eugene.
That is the picture. That is the picture. So when you were sharing that story, I was able to share this picture here.
I don't know where the hell you get that.
We're sneaky.
Well, listen, I don't like Steve. Go ahead.
So what we have here is you are the first inductee into the Yamhill-Carlton Wall of Distinction.
I'm thrilled.
You are the first, and it reads, Brigadier General James B. Thayer, Carlton High School, class of 1940, YC Wall of Distinction, presented for meritorious service to our country and our community. Sir, thank you very much. Before we leave you, are there any last words you'd like to share with the students of Yamhill-Carlton High School?
Well, I think, are we on?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to say that as a result of you visiting with me today, you see there is an opportunity for all of us. I know I realize that some feel that, what is the future for me? Am I going to make it? But I want the students to know that the result of going to Yamhill-Carlton High School, you're going to get an inspiration from those teachers that may just hit the spot for each and every one of you. And you might not like it too much at first, but it'll push you to do it. And I think that what I've said is the reason I am where I am today. They gave me that opportunity to push myself to the next level. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity to having gone. I never thought I'd be honored by Carlton Yamhill, and I guess I was quite enthusiastic about it because let me tell you, not that I wanted to be honored, but I always wanted to tell the story that I've just told you, and I've never done it before until right this minute. It's really fabulous. Thank you. A real talk on Americanism, what it meant to be an American. How you became
Yeah, take my joke.
Had the unique and exciting opportunity this year to teach a class called Veterans Legacy, and a class of to our knowledge that nobody else is doing. So what we do, and we're part of this group called the Mighty Endeavor. And the goal of the Mighty Endeavor is to record the history of every Oregon veteran in World War II. 150,000. So what we do is we interview them, record that, upload it, and summarize their story. So we have heard some incredible stories this year. Before we get into more of that, I'm going to have my students come down and introduce our honored guests.
My dad stayed in Yamhill-Hill. He served in the Mediterranean, served in the Navy. My dad served in the Navy in the Mediterranean, and he was. I'm here to introduce Mr. Sean Donovan.
Staff Sergeant Maker, 8 years, military working dog, explosives detection, Operations New Dawn, Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom. Thank you.
I'm introducing Kevin Scott.
21 years in the Army. Gonna stick it out for another 7 years. I've done Operation New Dawn, Iraqi freedom, a few tours of Iraq. Got a college degree through the Army. Already another one to look at that out as a approach. Thank you for letting me be here today.
I'm introducing Jeremy Cummings. I served in the Army as a combat engineer. I was in Iraq for about a year. I was stationed at Fort Lewis for a year. Then I went to the reserves for a few years as a specialist.
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm going to be introducing my great-great-great-uncle, Philip Frank Passmore. He's standing over here in the crowd. He served in the Army from August 23rd, 1944 until January 19th, 1948.
Hi, I'm Steve Klein, and I'm here to present my father, Sharon Klein, Dr. Sharon Klein, our superintendent.
Thank you. I served in the 82nd Airborne Division. I was a scout and a sniper for them. Then I was assigned to the long-range surveillance company for 7th Corps in Europe, and with them I went to the Gulf War in 1991.
And Shane, I am introducing Tweed Wise. Okay, she served on the Army during the Gulf War and started in October 1990 and ended in 1998. Alright, so I'm introducing Dennis McCord.
Dennis McCord here, and I served in the United States Navy for 22 years, retired 42 years ago, and incidentally, I spent about 2 weeks out of high school before I joined the Navy, and the rest of the time I spent at sea. Anyway, folks, I'm really appreciative of you recognizing those of us who served, and I look forward to talking to some of you a little later in the week.
This is Pete DeCrumble.
First of all, I'd like to mention my brother Bill, World War II vet, and he couldn't be here today because he was having his kidneys examined, but he's my hero. But anyway, I went to school here and graduated in 55, but everybody had to do something in those days. I joined the Naval Reserve my senior year, and it was an 8-year thing, and I ended up on a ship, went to Vietnam, and got back, and that's about it. But I was in the Navy.
So this year we've had the opportunity to interview some truly heroic Americans, and we've heard some incredible stories of bravery, of courage, of dedication, of duty and honor. And I think if you combine all the awards that the veterans that have earned that we've talked to this year, it's about just about everyone that is available. But that's not what they're about. I think that's such a great life lesson for all of us, especially today's world where it's all about self-gratification, those kind of things. That's not what they stand for. You know, they look at it, it's about the guy next to me. It's about the person next to me. It's not about me. And we've heard so many stories about that. And there is no greater example of that than our keynote speaker. Mark, stand up. And Mr. Browning, this is Mark Browning. He's a member of Oregon National Guard, volunteered to go to Afghanistan with 17 others and train Afghanis as a local army. They went to the most dangerous area, encountered the Taliban on a daily basis. And it's an incredible story. So we're more than thrilled to have him as our keynote speaker, Mr. Mark Browning.
Good morning. Seems to be working. All right, you guys can hear me okay? Sure. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you to all the veterans who are here with us today. It's a privilege to be here with you, to stand by your side. I'd like to thank Mr. McKinney, Principal Newman, for putting this together, having this program, and allowing us to launch our program, Veterans Legacies in the Mighty Endeavor, right here as a pilot program out of Yamhill-Carlton, which is incredibly exciting. You guys in this class are actually leading the way nationwide for a program that's going to go from here all the way to DC here in the next couple of years if I do it right. So thank you for all of that. I retired just about a year and a half ago from the Army. I was the son of an Army nurse and a school teacher, a high school teacher out of Clackamas, as a matter of fact, which is where I got my initial introduction to service. Between growing up in a house that honored youth, honored helping others, and honored serving their country, it was an easy decision for me. But if it's all right, I want to tell you guys just a little bit of the story of how I started and what brought me to where I am today, because that is what Veterans Legacies is all about, is storytelling. So, like you guys, I was a high school student just down the road. I was at Lowell High School. I was a mediocre student, mediocre athlete. I was on the football team there. Our senior year, we were having a particularly rough time. So I don't know, you guys can't relate to this, I hope, but we hadn't won a single game. All right, we were having a rough go. So there we were, late October. We're playing one of our rivals, Tiger High School, and we're losing bad. Coach calls a timeout. He comes out and he grabs us by the face mask, and I swear he's looking right into my eyes. He says, "Get up! Don't you quit! Don't you quit on me! Don't you quit on your team! Don't you quit on yourself! Get up! Compete!" That sunk in with me at that very moment. I was about 18 years old, and that was a lesson and a voice that dug into me deep. I like to tell you that we went on to win that game and rallied up, but there's no after-school special. We lost that game and the rest of them, the rest of the season, and I was introduced to adversity at a young age. From there, I went into the military. I wanted to serve. I wanted to do my part, so I enlisted as an infantryman, and I had the most incredible career. I was so blessed with the things I did. Not 1 year after I enlisted, I found myself in Japan. I was jumping out of helicopters into 10-foot snowdrifts and training alongside the Japanese Self-Defense Force. And I had to pinch myself that this was actually happening, and I was getting paid to do it. A year after that, I found myself in Cuba, Guantanamo Bay. I was a machine gunner on the end of a Coast Guard cutter, and I was patrolling the ocean between Haiti and Cuba, rescuing Haitian refugees and chasing down pirates that were out there trying to take advantage. I wasn't 21 years old, and I was out there behind this machine gun chasing down pirates, and once again, I had to pinch myself. I can't believe I'm doing this, and I can't believe I'm getting paid. This is incredible. A couple of years go by, military career unfolds, and I found myself as an instructor at Portland State University teaching military science. And I was training young officers how to become leaders in our military. And again, I was humbled. I was surrounded by some of the most incredible people who would go on to become leaders in our community and for our country. And again, I had to pinch myself. I can't believe I'm a part of this. I can't believe I'm doing it. A few years after that, you guys might be familiar with this time frame, the Middle East kicks up. And we've got this conflict going on in Iraq and Afghanistan. I was selected as a group of guys, there were 17 of us out of the state of Oregon at the time, who went off to Afghanistan to train the local Afghan army. We were there basically standing them up as a fighting force to fight against the Taliban. What we didn't realize is that after the first 30 days in country, we would find ourselves with our Afghan counterparts in southern Afghanistan fighting the Taliban on a daily basis. That was a lesson. That was probably one of the greatest lessons I learned at that moment in overcoming adversity. It was on July 27th. We were patrolling out in the desert, and we were ambushed. We were ambushed by heavy machine gun fire, RPGs, AK-47s. We were bordered, and if that wasn't enough, they opened up an anti-aircraft gun on us. We were caught in the middle of the desert. I had one of my young Afghan soldiers standing from about me to you, get shot in the arm. He dropped like a sack of potatoes in front of me. We were all dropped to the ground, and it was one of the most overwhelming moments, overwhelming amounts of firepower I had ever imagined, or I could have ever imagined being in. I was lying on the ground contemplating what was going on, and I was scared. And if anybody tells you that they've been in a firefight and they weren't scared, they're either lying or they're a psychopath, one or the other. But I had that moment where I was on the ground and I was particularly nervous. All of a sudden, that voice crept into the back of my head, and I heard my high school coach say, "Get up, Martin. Don't you quit. Don't you quit on me. Don't you quit on your team. And don't you quit on yourself. Get up. Compete." And at that moment, we started to go through our battle drills, our routines. We got up, we returned fire. We were able to take our casualty out of the area. We were able to call indirect fire on the enemy. And in that particular moment, we did win the day. We did have that moment that we were able to overcome the enemy. And that Afghan soldier who was shot in the arm 6 months later, I found him walking in the desert with a bandage and a grin from ear to ear. He was going to be okay, and he turned out just fine. And I tell you that story, as my microphone cuts out. There we go. I tell you that story because at that moment, what saved my life and what possibly saved the lives of the other people around me wasn't a great military leader, wasn't a moment that came down as a revelation from above. It was a high school teacher. It was a coach. It was the man who dedicated his life in his own form of service that saved us that day. And I think what's important about what you guys are celebrating today isn't necessarily just veterans. It's the idea of service in general. And like General Thayer said in the video, you have an obligation to serve. And what I would like to ask you, and what I would like to challenge all of you, is to find your own way to serve. I get asked on a regular basis, "Mark, don't you think we should bring back the draft? Don't you think everybody should have to join the military?" And I adamantly say no, because I personally enjoy serving with professionals who have volunteered to be side by side with me. But I adamantly believe that everybody should find their own way to serve. And if you look around your community, and you look just within your bleachers, you look at your teachers, you look at your coaches, you don't have to go very far right here in YC, and you're going to see firefighters, you're going to see nurses, you're going to see people who are serving their community, serving their public, and serving their country in their own way, which is absolutely possible for all of you. And I ask you to do the same thing. Not just for the country, not just for Yamhill-Carlton, but for the person who's to your right and left. Because these are the folks that are as we go forward. And I'm hoping that all of you will have an active part in that. So thank you to all of you for being here today. Thank you for allowing me to tell my story. And thank you for finding your own way to serve.
So can I have one more big round of applause for all of our guests? We are a little bit over right now, so we are going to go the next bell you hear, the Charlie bell to 7th period, I believe, right? 7th period. So, freshman, please.